What's wrong with the state of Missouri? Somebody, please, come and see about Missouri, because it's too far. It's too much.
3 years before Ferguson erupted over the death of Michael Brown, there was another fatal police shooting in Missouri that got limited attention: the death of Anthony Lamar Smith. Now, 6 years later, the city of St. Louis is at another monumental moment. People in St. Louis are tired of the discrimination, the deep-rooted racism, and police overreach. But most of all, they're frustrated little has changed since Ferguson.
You don't put us in a little corral and tell us little black folk go over there, that's your territory. No, St. Louis is our territory, and we will protest wherever we want to protest. The mayor, the governor will not tell us for where we got to stand and where we got to speak from. No!
For more than a month, people have been protesting nearly every day. These protests started mid-September when former St. Louis police officer Jason Stockley was found not guilty of murdering 24-year-old Anthony Lamar Smith.
Jason Stockley should have been convicted of first-degree murder, premeditated murder. He gunned my baby down, and police on the scene didn't help him.
The number of fatal police shootings in St. Louis is the highest it's been in a decade.
We saw this playbook before. I mean, this is not our first rodeo when it comes to criminal justice not working in the best interest of those individuals, African-American individuals. We saw it in Ferguson, and here we see it again.
The way that the city is prepped, putting up barricades before anything ever happens, is very similar to what happened back in Ferguson.
Officials and residents worried about protests following the verdict becoming another Ferguson. In 2014, protests following the fatal police shooting of Michael Brown lasted around 300 days and caused millions of dollars in damage.
You need to immediately stop throwing objects and disperse immediately. Stop fucking with us!
Because of the intensity of those Ferguson protests, police and Missouri Governor Eric Greitens heavily prepared for the Stockley verdict.
The National Guard remains on standby. State and local police are out in force.
It's important to remember the context and history around this case. This is a shooting that happened before Darren Wilson gunned down Michael Brown, before the Ferguson protests. Anthony Lamar Smith had been shot and killed, and prosecutors had declined to press charges. The community was waiting for any sign of justice. Here's how it happened. In 2011, Jason Stockley and his partner were on patrol when they thought they saw a drug deal in a Church's Chicken parking lot. As they approached the suspect, the car turned around and sped away. Stockley said he believed he saw the suspect, Anthony Lamar Smith, with a gun in the passenger seat. The two chased Smith for a short time at high speeds, and police video caught Stockley saying, "We're gonna kill this motherfucker, don't you know it?" Stockley was also carrying an AK-47, which is against department policy, though he testified he only carried it around to threaten suspects. The chase ended after Smith's car came to a stop. A coroner said there were 5 shots fired at Smith. Stockley was seen walking to his patrol car, getting something out of a bag in the back seat, and bringing it back to Smith's car. Stockley says it was QuikClot to help with Smith's wounds. Prosecutors said he planted a gun. The case was investigated, but no charges were ultimately filed. In 2012, a civil lawsuit was filed against the city of St. Louis in the wrongful death of Smith. A precedent-setting $900,000 was awarded to Smith's fiancée on behalf of their daughter. Shortly after the settlement was issued, prosecutors decided to take the case on again, citing new evidence.
In late 2015, DNA was found on the gun under a screw. I also found out that the audio was enhanced and had Jason Stockley stating, "We're going to kill this MFer, don't you know?" This is a murder, from my perspective.
But Judge Timothy Wilson found Stockley not guilty, and protesters were ready.
If we didn't get no justice, shut it down. I said, if we don't get no justice, shut it down. Who shuts it down? We shut it down. Who shuts it down?
One of the reasons this community is so vehemently demanding justice is that people assumed it would be a straightforward conviction, since there was an overwhelming amount of evidence.
The judge has issued his ruling. He has issued a verdict of not guilty, the state failed to meet its burden of proof.
But I want to know, tell me how his life did not matter. Tell me how this man was able to do this and get off. And then there's video, there's audio, and he still got off.
This commentary from the judge just added fuel to the fire. Finally, the court observes, based on its nearly 30 years on the bench, that an urban heroin dealer not in possession of a firearm would be an anomaly.
He's explaining it away, saying it's okay because if it's a drug dealer, we're not surprised, despite all the evidence that that's not what happened. I'm not sure what the anomaly is here, but we know it's not police getting off scot-free because that's happened time and time again.
People in St. Louis were hoping that lessons learned from Ferguson would lead to the justice they sought. More than 200 recommendations had been made by a group of regional leaders dubbed the Ferguson Commission.
Groups have already gotten together and said, of these 189, we think these are most important, and these are the things we're going to call elected officials accountable to. And I invite you to join them, because accountability will make implementation happen.
Unfortunately, most of those recommendations still haven't been implemented. This lack of progress only reinforces how many in the Black community feel about police.
They have a right to be angry. They have a right to be upset.
People think that we protest because we have nothing else to do, because we want to be disruptive, because we want to hurt people, or we want to stand in the street, or we want to make noise, or we want to be seen. That's not why we protest. We protest because they keep killing us. And we protest because they keep killing us and they keep getting off.
Activists in St. Louis have been gathering and protesting nearly every day since the verdict, and the protests show no sign of slowing down. Police have made hundreds of arrests, including protesters, bystanders, journalists, and even legal observers.
All credentialed media need to get back to the designated area immediately.
These tensions go beyond the streets. Mayor Lyda Krewson and the interim police chief have called for an independent investigation into police conduct, and the ACLU has filed a lawsuit against the city of St. Louis. Meanwhile, on November 15th, a judge issued an injunction limiting police use of force and protecting protesters' rights. Some city aldermen want to limit police use of pepper spray, one of the main tactics used by police during Ferguson and recent protests. That ordinance would also limit police use of excessive force, while other lawmakers are headed in the exact opposite direction. Republican legislators want to increase penalties for unpermitted protests that block traffic. None of this has stopped the movement.
Regardless of what the justice system may tell us, we have our own verdict, and we're going to stand till that verdict be done. He was out 300 plus days for Ferguson, and we will continue to do the same.
Protesters say they aren't done. This isn't about one death or one verdict. It's about deeply entrenched racial tensions. And until they see change, community organizers say there will be no peace without justice.
The only thing people wanted after Ferguson was compassion, but what they got was National Guards being shot at with rubber bullets and tear gas. These are people's lives. These are people's kids, sons, daughters. Systems just don't want to change, but we have to change, and I think they're starting to change.